Season 2 of Squid Game, I personally think is fantastic, as you've probably gathered from the video title. A lot of people think otherwise. Some people think it's disappointing compared with Season 1. Some people think it straight up sucks. I disagree. So let's talk about it. There's gonna be some spoilers in this video, so if you haven't seen Season 2 of Squid Game, go watch it. Otherwise, you'd be doing yourself a disservice. I'm gonna try to make a case as to why I think Season 2 of Squid Game is great, or at the very least, not as bad as some people think. And I'm gonna break down my argument in three broad categories, namely aesthetics, performance, and plot. And let's go over each one. First of all, aesthetics. I mean, what can I say? The show is just visually gorgeous to look at. You know, the color palette, the cinematography. All across the board, everything visually is just top-notch, chef's kiss. I think one of the reasons Squid Game as a series was able to break out as much as it did internationally back in 2021 and again in 2024, despite having Korean dialogue, it's just how striking and beautiful the whole thing looks. I mean, you could pretty much turn off the audio and the show would still be, interesting and beautiful to look at. The bold, vibrant, playful, if not a little childish color schemes juxtaposed with the heavy and brutal nature of the show just creates a very interesting and striking effect. I think the colors are also part of the reason why the show is so memeable, which also contributes to its global success. I especially like the color purple, which is used a lot throughout Season 2. Two notable examples are one, the ending scene, the Russian roulette scene in episode 1. There's a lot of color purple in that scene. And then again, towards the end of Season 2, the purple hallway leading up to the control room of the pink soldiers. The color purple is the result of combining blue and red, which are the two colors symbolizing the two choices that the players of the games have to make in this season. The red cross symbolizes the choice to leave, and the blue circle symbolizes the choice to stay and continue to play the game. And purple represents the in-between, the ambivalence, and the battle of ideologies of the two sides, which I think is a brilliant bit of visual storytelling. And who can forget the purple hair wonder Thanos, whom I'm going to talk about more later in this video. Speaking of Thanos, I don't think enough people have talked about how badass that hip-hop 808 version of Fly Me to the Moon is in the third episode where the red light and green light game happens. I mean, the song has been used in Season 1 once before in the same game, but this time around it's just hits different. Right after Thanos pushed and killed those three poor bastards in front of him, this hip-hop version of Fly Me to the Moon just kicked in, and it was so badass and cool and gangster, and also kind of wacky and playful when it's played against this life and death game where blood and guts are flying everywhere. It's just so good. I mean, aside from that one song, the music as a whole for Season 2 of Squid Game is just strong, as is the case with Season 1. The OSTs are enjoyable to listen to on their own, and when it's enjoyed with the story, it just adds tension and mystique and atmosphere and vibe, and at times levity as well. When I think of the aesthetics for a show like Squid Game, I think the sonic and musical aspect is definitely part of it. Now, the last bit about aesthetics of Season 2 Squid Game I'm going to touch upon is the editing choices, and I'm going to use one standout scene as an example. And the scene I'm talking about is the first Russian roulette game that Mr. Handsome Recruiter, Mr. Slap City, played with the two mobsters. In particular, during the climax of that game, where Mr. Handsome just kept rushing the two guys to play rock, paper, and scissors -1 super fast, and there's a montage of their hands being played and that are tied. And eventually, one of them got flustered and messed up. In that moment, we as the audience, we all know that one of them messed up, but we just don't know how because the camera didn't show us the hands for that last round. The editing choice to have that few seconds of delay until they show us that actually the lucky guy was the one who messed up by playing two rocks was such a subtle choice that made the scene so much more powerful. And then, of course, immediately after that, there's the subversion where the boss guy actually sacrificed himself. And that was such an emotional gut punch. Very reminiscent of the first season's Marble game. Now let's segue to performance/characterization. And I'm going to start this one off with, again, Mr. Slappy, the handsome recruiter. Now, if I'm not mistaken, the dude who played the character is a super famous A-list actor over in South Korea. So it must be very expensive to keep, which is probably why they killed off his character in the first episode. But boy, what screen time he had, I think we can all agree he used it to the maximum. The character is just so mesmerizing to watch for every second he's on screen. The performance is like this flavorful blend of suave, elegant, and well-behaved demeanor mixed with this sporadic, psychotic mania. It's just, the actor just pulls it off so well. Oh, and I also like that little smirk, that little constant little smirk he has on his face. It's so irreverent and devilish. I love it. No homo though. Moving on to the character who killed Mr. Handsome is our main character, Gi-hong. The guy is the emotional heart of this show. He cares so much, and his caring so much makes us want to care too, you know? If I'm being honest, the characterization and the performance for Gi-hong in season 2 is a little bit one note, and that one note is intensity. The intensity of his desire to bring the whole game down. And it's just one flavor, but it's a strong flavor, and we need it to keep things in perspective. Now, in direct contrast to the constant scowl, the seriousness of Gi-hong, is our boy Thanos, the clown, the cringe, the wrist lord. I mean, what can I say about our purple-haired gangster rapper wannabe that hasn't already been said? He's just one of those characters that you love to hate. But I'm gonna play the devil's advocate a little bit by arguing that he's one of the more lovable douchebags. Yo, that's right, Thanos, you're my brother, I'm gonna defend you. Sorry, that was horrible, won't do that again. I mean, the guy is a bully, but I don't think he's a completely irredeemable asshole to everybody all the time. Like, there is that one scene where he defends that little bro from, the other guy by teaching him that he shouldn't take shit from somebody his own age. I think that's cool. I mean, the only guy he picks on constantly throughout the show is the MG coin guy, the crypto guy. There is a bit of a justification there, but not a lot. I mean, Thanos' death is kind of poetic, in my opinion. It's like, if you're constantly trying to shift blame onto somebody else for something that you did, you're gonna get wrecked. Also, the guy does have some game, like that little rap confession he did for that one girl before Red Light, Green Light. It's a little cringe, but it's also kind of adorable, not gonna lie. I mean, you gotta love a guy who's so full of himself that he's so confident, There's something attractive about that. I think a lot of shy guys can take a page from Thanos' book. If the girl wasn't so stupid that she got killed off right in the beginning, I think she and Thanos would have been a thing. There's a decent chance. All kidding aside, I just love those uninhibited wildcard characters, the Joker type. Also, according to some fans of the guy who played Thanos, who in real life is a K-pop star, he's definitely channeling some of his real-life personality and hijinks into the performance of Thanos, which I find to be an interesting tidbit. Now let's talk about the real MVP standout performance / character in my book for the second season, the frontman. The performance is so nuanced and understated, but it's able to convey such a looming, threatening presence throughout the whole season, which I think is just an incredible job. The actor who played the frontman kind of looks like a Korean Mads Mikkelsen, the guy who played the NBC version of Hannibal Lecter. Both the frontman and Hannibal Lecter put on this sophisticated and friendly persona, but deep down we all know that they are twisted psychos, and we can't help ourselves but keep trying to figure out, what their deal is. And that's exactly what I found myself doing throughout season 2. Every time the frontman was on screen, I was trying to, observe his every little movement, every little subtle facial expression to decipher his psychology, as he was trying to do the same, with Gi-hong. That calm, cool, collected, evil mastermind character archetype is just my favorite. For me, the frontman single-handedly carries season 2, performance and character-wise. Finally, let's talk about the story, the actual plot of Season 2 Squid Game, which a lot of people are iffy about. And I don't really get it, because if you liked Season 1, I don't see a lot of reason to dislike Season 2, because a lot of the underlying, the fundamental, philosophical, ideological debates are pretty much the same, just with some added layers and complexity. If I have to distill it down, the main philosophical struggle, if you will, is between the two sides. On the one side, the supposed good side is our main character Gi-hong, and he is on the side of humanity, of human compassion. He is of the belief that all human lives are fundamentally valuable, that even if you are at the upper echelon of socioeconomic ladder, you're not supposed to just trample the little guys down below and treat them like trash. That human dignity and human life is worth something. The overly idealistic and maybe a little immature side of his philosophy is that he's trying to save everybody, without addressing the fundamental wealth inequality and the factor of human greed and human self-interest. And because of his naivete and the lack of thought-outness, occasionally you see cracks in his philosophy, most notably towards the end of Season 2, where he suggested the idea of sacrificing a few people, for an opportunity to take over the game militarily. All the while without realizing that he's slowly drifting into the bad guy territory, which is to win and get ahead at whatever cost it takes. A lot of people will probably point at this hypocrisy and laugh at him, including the frontman, but I'm willing to cut him some slack, because at the end of the day, he's just a flawed human, like every one of us. He's just a guy with a huge stash of cash, but ultimately speaking, limited capability. None of it, in my opinion, discounts the fact that everything he does is from a genuine good place. And that's pretty damn admirable and deserving of us rooting for him. And then there's the flip side of the coin, which is championed by the frontman for this season, which is the idea of an indifferent capitalistic meritocracy, and of the good old master-slave morality, which is the idea that the strong do as they can and the weak suffer as they must. What's particularly fascinating about the frontman character in this season for me is that he's at least attempting to entertain the possibility of a middle ground between his view and Gi-hong's ideals. And there are tons of secondary conflicts within the second season of Squid Game, such as the conflict between the organ harvesters within the management of the Squid Game and people like the sniper lady who is trying to reduce human misery as much as possible, even though she's part of the machine, but she's trying to preserve humanity at every opportunity she gets. Another thing I think this season did exceedingly well is a case study of the gambler's mentality, or the gambler's fallacy, which is the idea that a gambling addict always believes that if they just keep on playing, eventually they're going to win, eventually their luck is going to turn around. And this is explored through the introduction of a new game mechanic of this season, which is to give the players a choice to exit the game at any point and leave with the money they've accumulated up to that point. A lot of the players, through their own admission, have already made a decent chunk of change midway through the game, and if they choose to exit the game at that point, they will at the very least have a good starting point towards paying off their debts, but they choose not to. So many of them choose not to. It just goes to show how powerful greed can be and how short-sighted humans can get. I think what stops a lot of people from enjoying season 2 of Squid Game, or even season 1 for that matter, is that they try too hard to self-insert themselves into the world. I think so many people unreasonably expect every character decision to make perfect logical sense in the real world, and every motive to be explained out loud, instead of practicing some healthy level of suspension of disbelief and just sit back and enjoy all the ideas and philosophical struggles that are being presented and explored by the show. I suggest that the ideas that the show is grappling with are fairly complex and have roots in reality. So don't expect clear-cut answers. Instead, just come to your own conclusions. Oh, and one last thing. A lot of people are criticizing the detective rescue squad subplot is moving too slow and didn't come to any resolution. And to that I say, you do know there's a season 3 coming later this year, right? Where they're gonna resolve everything? Okay, good to know. So those are my thoughts. What do you think? If you disagree with any of the points that I made in this video, I challenge you to argue with me in the comment section down below. And if you like everything I said, please give me a like and subscribe so we can agree on more things in the future. Bye.